Hello and welcome to a new episode of Nile TV Newsroom Live. I'm Raham Morsi, and if you're watching the show for the very first time, let me reintroduce you to what the show is all about. This show is composed of a number of different segments. First, we take a closer look at the world of politics. Next comes business and finance, and we also learn more about what's happening in the world of technology. This is in addition to the latest cultural and arts events and a closer look at the world of sports. We're going to start off with politics after the break. President Al-Sisi and visiting Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban held a joint press conference following their talks in Cairo on Tuesday. Speaking at the press conference, the president said Cairo and Budapest enjoy special ties that have lasted for the past 95 years, describing the ties with Hungary as a model, and said that Hungary had been understanding in the developments taking place in Egypt and the region in recent times. He added there is agreement between the two sides over the investments in the Suez Canal investment zone and appear to cooperate in the field of transportation, trade, agriculture, irrigation, culture and education. For his part, Orban said the two sides are coordinating on the political and economic level, adding that both sides agreed to expand cooperation in the fields of energy, nuclear power. He said Budapest values Egyptian efforts to quell illegal immigration, adding that his country is partnering with Egypt in launching a business forum. President Al-Sisi and the Hungarian Prime Minister also witnessed the signing of a number of deals between Cairo and Budapest. Egypt's Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry visited Damascus on Monday in the first visit to the Syrian capital by a top Egyptian diplomat since the uprising in 2011, in another sign of warming ties between Syria and Arab states that were once not so frosty. Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry had told reporters the goal of the visit is primarily humanitarian and to pass on solidarity from the leadership, the government and the people of Egypt to the people of Syria. Egypt was looking forward to providing more quake assistance in full coordination with the Syrian government after already having donated some 1,500 tons so far, according to Shoukry, standing alongside the Syrian Foreign Minister Faisal Muqdad. When the Foreign Minister of Egypt comes to Damascus, he comes to his home, his people and his country, Muqdad said. The earthquake killed more than 5,900 people in Syria, the bulk of them in the rebel-held northwest. In Turkey, the death toll stands at more than 44,000. Shoukry met Muqdad in 2021 on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly following the quake. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi spoke with Assad by phone for the first time. And on Sunday, a delegation of parliamentarians from around the region, including Egypt's parliament speaker, met Assad in Damascus. Egypt's Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry also met with the Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu on Monday in the first visit to Turkey by a top Egyptian diplomat in a decade. Shoukry met Cavusoglu in the southern city of Adana, which was also hit by the earthquakes. Turkish and Egyptian ministers later visited the port of Mersin, where an Egyptian aid ship arrived on Monday. Diplomatic relations between Egypt and Turkey were severed in 2013, and this also led to a frosty relation. Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry met with Syrian President Bashar al-Assad and the Turkish Foreign Minister Cavusoglu in a first visit to Syria and Turkey by a top Egyptian diplomat in a decade. More about the effects of the devastating quake in the following report.
Around 40,000 Syrians who'd fled areas affected by the deadly February 6th earthquake have returned from Turkey to rebel-held northwestern Syria in the 2 weeks since Turkey eased restrictions on their movements. Immigration was recorded at 4 border crossings held by Syrian armed groups opposed to Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. As of Monday, some 13,500 people had crossed through Bab el-Hawa, nearly 10,000 through Jarablus crossing, and around 7,000 each through Bab el-Salam and Tal Abyad crossings. Turkish Defense Ministry official confirmed that the number of Syrians who'd re-entered to their country has reached 40,000. Most Syrians were returning and the number was increasing daily. Restrictions put in place by Turkey in April last year, just before Eid al-Fitr holiday, had banned Syrians with temporary protection permits from making round trips to Syria in an effort to promote one-way returns. Turkey hosts some 3.5 million Syrian refugees, and anti-refugee sentiment has been on the rise in recent years. In the aftermath of the quake, Syrians have taken advantage of an offer from Turkish authorities to spend up to 6 months in the northwest without losing the chance to return. Many have gone back to check on relatives following the temblor that killed more than 44,000 people in Turkey and around 6,000 in Syria, most of them in the country's rebel-held northwest.
And joining us over the phone is Dr. Muhammad Abdul Halim, a political analyst. Good evening to you, sir.
Good evening, Graham.
Can you tell us, Shukri's visit is the first of its kind to Turkey by a top diplomat in about a decade. Why is it significant that this is happening, and what does this mean for the future of Egyptian-Turkish relations?
Correct. Before his own advent in Turkey, actually, he headed actually to Syria at the very beginning, which is commonly regarded as a very important thing. It's sort of visit that carries, large number of messages and signals actually out of the Egyptian presidency. First, to represent the condolences and the deep sense of, sadness for the bereaved ones, and the aspiration of a very speedy recovery for those injured and badly wounded ones whose lives were to be quite disturbed actually under the ruins and under the debris of the earthquake actually. The Syrian visit on the part of his own Excellency, Foreign Minister Mr. Sameh Shukri, immediately after the earthquake, is a representation of the political will, a realistic political will actually, carries humane and humanitarian messages actually to try to alleviate the sort of the psychological pains and the psychological traumas actually that were to be left on a large number of the Syrian guys, figures that were to be quite debilitated under the debris of the earthquake and the aftershock of that sort of earthquake. It comes immediately after a long visit of a sort of an alienation, a sort of an isolation to try to alleviate the sense of political isolation on the part of the Syrian administration.
Yes, sir. But before we get back to Turkey, could I just also ask you intervene and ask about Syria? The foreign minister had also met with the Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Why is this important? Does this mean that there will be some sort of I suppose, normalization of relations? Will it be less frosty when it comes to other Arab nations as well?
Yeah, it's a very important sort of visit, particularly on a political side. Apart from the humane and humanitarian dimension, actually, on a political side, it seems to be quite an anticipation, a sort of foreshadowing of the return again of Syria to the Arab League and to the Arab file, actually, after the lapse of about 12 years of absence, actually, and to assume again its own seat in the Arab League, representing the signs of goodwill towards Syria to be part and parcel of the Arab fabric again for a second time. Because, as you know, as all of us actually know, that Syria was passing through a very severe period of isolation, but this does not detract it from the words of being part and parcel of the Arab security, and in the meantime, this is coupled with, a delegation on the part of the chairman of the parliamentary figures representing, signs of God willingness and friendliness, as much as the signs of friendship, actually, among the Arab countries, on both the official as much as on the grassroots level. There is a great deal of necessity, actually, of the return of Damascus again, actually, to the Arab League, representing and signifying that sort of visit, transcendence of the barriers of isolation and of the Pisidian alienating fact of which Damascus was passing through about 12 years. This is another clear testimony again
Yes.
to the fact that Egypt is not
Yes.
away from its own fatherly countries represented. Yeah.
I'm sorry to cut you off there, but could you just tell us a bit about, because we're short on time, could you tell us a bit about the significance of the foreign minister's visit to Turkey, specifically when it comes to aid, since the foreign minister highlighted this issue?
Yeah, I mean, on the part of the Turkish visit, actually, it signifies that Egypt has got a very serious will in, assisting and of aiding the brotherly countries, no matter how, the disputes and the previous breach in the diplomatic relations in the field of cooperation, maybe, or have been. The influence of the Turkish situation on the tense relations and the Turkish-Egyptian relation would seem to be quite very much important. There are fixes and there are fixed facts, actually, that would connect Egypt with Turkey in terms of the geographical location, the aspiration, and we can really, remember the fact that those countries, that is Egypt on the one hand and Turkey on the other, are Muslim countries, Sunni countries, actually, and in the meantime, it's in somehow or another one way of being very much, representing consensus of opinion and aiming at the same, targets at the end of the day. And I think that Turkey did represent and underline on its own part very good signs of goodwill to cooperate with Egypt. And so far as, it did stop for a large number of social platforms, actually, that were quite inimical to the Egyptian state, in much the same way that it, extraditing a large number of the activists of the banned Muslim Brotherhood, and in the meantime, it represents signs of goodwill of being very much aiding the Egyptian safety and security, and in the meantime, it's realizing, investment actually of about $500 million with Egypt.
Yes, sir.
Which is a good sign of goodwill in the meantime. Yeah.
Unfortunately, sir, I have to cut you off there because we're running out of time for this segment. But thank you so much for joining us over the phone, Dr. Mohammed Abdel Halim, a political analyst. Thank you for highlighting the significance of the foreign minister's visit. We're going to take a short break and move on with the rest of the show. Next up is Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli continuing his visit to the Qatari capital Doha that is aiming to boost bilateral cooperation, attract investments and boost trade exchange between the two countries. During his visit, the Prime Minister met with the members of a Qatari business union. On the sidelines of the visit, Madbouli witnessed the ceremony of a signing of 3 memorandums of understanding between the Ministry of Health and a number of Qatari companies within the framework of boosting a partnership with the private sector in the field of healthcare services. Following the signing, the Minister of Health, Khalid Abdel Ghaffar, pointed that the memorandums of understanding that have been signed go in line with the vision of the Egyptian state that supports partnership with the private sector in different sectors, and specifically in the health, aiming to improve and raise the levels of health, medical and medicine care for citizens. According to the memos of understanding, the Ministry of Health will choose the best locations for the health installations in which the Qatari companies will invest and operate. The ministry will also work on facilitating procedures and needed licenses. Earlier, Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli had met with Qatar's Emir Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. During the meeting, Madbouli stressed the Egyptian state's efforts to persuade local and foreign investments in addition to boosting the role of the private sector. Madbouli also held talks with the Qatari counterpart, Sheikh Khalid bin Khalifa bin Abdel Aziz Al Thani, as both sides agreed on preparing for the visit for a Qatar business delegation to the free zones in Egypt and the economic zone in the Suez Canal to be briefed on the available capabilities and opportunities there. Madbouli also witnessed with his Qatari counterpart the signing of an agreement in the field of agriculture. Madbouli's official visit came upon the invitation of Qatar's Prime Minister. The visit is part of both countries' keenness to enhance bilateral relations.
Et des mémorandums d'entente.
Joining us over the phone is Dr. Yumna Al-Hamai, and a economic expert and political expert. Good evening to you, ma'am. Can you tell us about the Prime Minister's visit to Qatar along with a high-level delegation? Why is this visit so important and significant when it comes to the bilateral ties between both countries?
Good evening. I think that this visit is quite important during this period in order to enhance economic relations on a regional basis. We all know that Arab countries are suffering nowadays from severe challenges due to after COVID-19 and then Russia-Ukrainian war. And this actually, according to tendency of the world economy nowadays towards more regionalization compared to globalization. Yes. Most countries nowadays are going toward enhancing regional economic relations from this perspective, and according to the challenges the Egyptian economy is confronting nowadays, enhancing economic relations with Arab countries may present a significant priority for Egypt nowadays. And we can add to that Egypt has exerted specific efforts in order to enhance a climate of investment so that we can attract foreign direct investment, and Qatari economic relations may represent a priority for that, since we have a lot of Qatari companies in Egypt. Still, we need to ease the environment for investment. Still, some of them are suffering from bureaucracy and so on, and this is what actually our Prime Minister asserted, that we are going to address all obstacles confronting investors, as well as facilitating potentialities for IPO. Nowadays, Egypt has declared that we have 32 entities for the program of IPO. So it's quite important to promote for such entities to attract investors from Qatar, and still our economic relations still quite minimal compared to the potentiality of these relations. Still, our trade didn't exceed $1 billion, and Qatari investors in Egypt approaching to $2 billion. So still we need to enhance such relations.
Yes, but also during this visit, Egypt and Qatar signed a number of MOUs, specifically in the field of healthcare as well as agriculture. This is in addition to a promise of opportunities of investments in economic free zones, in addition to the Suez Canal economic zone. Can you tell us more about these agreements and the future possibilities for investments in these free zones? Why is this an important way of expanding investment opportunities?
Actually, this field of investment is quite attractive for investors, specifically from Gulf countries. Yes. Health services nowadays attracting a lot of investors, since it's quite profitable. Besides, we can add to that Egypt is going to apply the holistic health insurance system. And this is going to enable, huge market for health service in Egypt. And from here it comes that this field is becoming quite attractive for foreign investors. And we need that Arab investors and Gulf investors should have the priority, so that we can have more, Arab economic integration. And from here it comes that this is becoming quite a very important priority for us to attract Qatari investors in this field. Besides that, the Suez Canal area, the free economic area, can, in its geographic unique position, it needs actually a lot of investment in this area. And Qatari investors nowadays are having quite important experience. We actually praise what Qatar has done regarding the organization of World Cup, and to how extent they have succeeded to do that in a very good way. And they gained actually experiences in infrastructure. And I believe that the Suez Canal area may attract investors, Qatari investors, to come and to provide services for, transportation and maritime services. This can make a win-win situation in which we need actually investors to come and to invest. From one perspective, we need to enhance our revenue from not only just this area. Suez Canal is not only by having, the revenue from being passing in this canal, important way of transportation, but we need more services to be there, like services of supporting,
the industry.
yes. And this is actually a very attractive type of investment for foreign investors.
Okay, Dr. Yumna Al-Hamai, Professor of Economics, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to take a short break and move on with the rest of the episode. And Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza Strip voiced anger over a meeting between top Israeli and Palestinian officials hosted by Jordan on Sunday. In Gaza, women and masked men protested against the meeting in Aqaba, aimed at halting the surging violence as Washington and its Arab allies seek to diffuse tensions, which are fueling concerns of a wider escalation. Spokesperson for Hamas condemned the meeting. The discussion in Aqaba are part of stepped-up Jordanian diplomacy with Washington to put the brakes on one of the worst surges in violence in years, with concern building of further escalation in the holy month of Ramadan. The meeting at the Red Sea port of Aqaba brought together top Israeli and Palestinian security chiefs for the first time in many years, aiming to restore calm in the region. And the U.S. President Joe Biden's Middle East advisor Brett McGurk is attending, along with Jordanian and Egyptian officials. And in a spurt of violence, at least 63 Palestinians, including civilians, have been killed this year, according to the health ministry, as well as 10 Israelis. And the Palestinian government has also condemned what they call support of terrorist acts by Israeli settlers by the Israeli government. Business, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak struck a deal with the European Union on post-Brexit trade rules for Northern Ireland on Monday, saying it will pave the way for a new chapter in London's relationship with the bloc. Standing alongside European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen at a news conference in Windsor, Sunak said the two sides had agreed to remove any sense of a border between Britain and its province, a situation that had angered politicians on both sides. He immediately won plaudits for the business groups who welcomed the easing of the trade rules and an EU promise that it would be willing to allow British scientists to join its vast research program if Sunak's party accepts the deal. The agreement marks a high-risk strategy for Sunak just 4 months after he took office. He's looking to secure improved relations with Brussels and the United States without angering the wing of his party, most wedded to Brexit. The deal seeks to resolve the tensions caused by Northern Ireland protocols, a complex agreement which set the trading rules for the British-ruled region that London agreed before it left the EU, but now says was unworkable. Spain's economy minister, Nadia Calvino, said on Saturday that while discussions on a joint communique from the group of 20 G20 finance leaders meeting were getting difficult, some progress had been made. G20 finance chiefs have been unable to reach a consensus on describing the war in Ukraine and are likely to end a two-day meeting in the southern Indian city of Bengaluru without a joint communique. The United States and its allies in the G7 group of nations have been adamant in demands that the communique squarely condemn Russia for the invasion of its neighbor, which has been opposed by the Russian and Chinese delegations. Calvino added that the outlook for the Spanish economy was positive for 2023. Gross domestic product grew a faster than expected 5.5% in 2022 as the country avoided a recession in the final quarter amid a global slowdown. Wall Street's main indices fell in the open on Tuesday as Treasury yields rose on bets of more interest rate hikes from the Federal Reserve. The Dow Jones Industrial Average was 0.05% at the open. The S&P 500 opened lower at 0.13%, while the Nasdaq dropped 0.14% on the opening bell. In the tech world, remote presence meeting devices, foldable laptops, and hammer-resistant screen protectors took the stage on Tuesday on the second day of Barcelona's Mobile World Congress. A Beijing-based tech company showcased their new dual-screen tablet with a moving keyboard that allows users to adapt the device to their needs. The company also showcased the latest version of its ThinkPad foldable laptop and a prototype ThinkPad rollable screen laptop, as well as presentations from Spanish companies for proposals for immersive remote meetings, while South Korean companies showed their systems to replace big broadcast and movie production stages with its live video compositing setup based in camera tracking. Panzer Glass dropped the hammer onto its latest smartphone screen protector to show the resistance of their product. More than 80,000 people, including tech executives, innovators, and regulators, were expected to attend the event, where new products launch will also take the spotlight. The MWC kicked off on Monday and is set to close Thursday. Alex Hannum was diagnosed with Duchenne muscular dystrophy, or DMD, just before his 4th birthday. Now 16-year-old and studying for his A-levels at school, he lives with his mum, dad, and sister Isla in Leicestershire, UK. DMD is a progressive life-limiting condition diagnosed in childhood. It causes the muscles in the body to gradually weaken. Here's the story.
Duchenne disease affects 1 in 3,500 boys born in the United Kingdom, with around 2,500 currently living with the condition. There is currently no cure for the disease, but advancements in technology are following children like Alex to lead a better quality of life. However, no device currently exists to help when those living with DMD lose the use of their arms. It's being designed specifically in a program to aim to change this with the development of a smart suit. It is being designed to help people with DMD and SMA to maintain the use of their arms and allow them to continue to perform day-to-day tasks. The project hopes to develop a pioneering piece of wearable tech that has the potential to improve the lives of thousands of children living with DMD, including Alex. The prototype smart suit is still in development stages, but the hope is that it will be available commercially in the near future. Jack Connolly is an engineer at Wearable Tech Specialist PA Consulting, who are working with the University of Liverpool to develop the prototype. He is currently speaking with youngsters like Alex to get feedback on the current iteration and understand how it can be improved, and to make it as practical and functional as possible for users. Alex is one of the first people to try on the prototype. He thinks it will be able to help him with everyday tasks such as brushing his teeth, combing his hair, and making a cup of tea. The ultimate aim is that one day in the near future, the smart suit will allow youngsters living with DMD to live independently and with dignity as their condition worsens.
And in the world of culture, like his grandfather and father, Palestinian blacksmith Hassan Khamis is often found with a hammer in hand. in his workshop in Ramallah crafting traditional tools. The 74-year-old has been working the trade since he was a young boy, and the skills he inherited have been passed down through generations. Clinging to old forge-wielding techniques, Khamis said his workload has dramatically gone down as customers are increasingly heading to those who use new technologies and are cheaper and quicker. Yet, this is not the case for Abdul Jawad Halaika, one of Khamis's regular customers who trusts him in upkeeping his family heirlooms. And in the arts, Hollywood producers celebrated Tom Cruise's career and handed their top film honor to multiverse adventure Everything, Everywhere, All at Once on Saturday at one of the key award ceremonies ahead of the next month's Oscars. The Producers Guild of America honored Cruise with a Lifetime Achievement Award, and several speakers thanked the actor for boosting the pandemic-hobbled movie business with last summer's blockbuster Top Gun Maverick. The 60-year-old Cruise rose to fame as the star of Risky Business, Cocktail, A Few Good Men, and other films. As he accepted his award, Cruise applauded the work of the TV and film producers in the audience, adding, "It is not just luck, that you have to create that luck and have to will to exist it." After Cruise's remarks, Everything, Everywhere was named Best Theatrical Motion Picture, providing momentum for the movie heading into the Oscars on March 12th. Everything Everywhere tells the story of a Chinese-American laundromat owner struggling to finish her taxes when she swept into an alternate universe. "This is so special," said producer Jonathan Wang, surrounded by Oscar-nominated cast members Michelle Yeoh, Ke-Huy Quan, Stephanie Hsu, and Jamie Lee Curtis. Egypt's historic mosque of Al-Hakim bi-Amrillah, named after the 6th Fatimid Caliph and located in the Old Cairo, was reopened for visitors on Monday after renovations. The renovation project for the historic mosque began in 2017 with a budget of 85 million Egyptian pounds, or around $2.8 million. The renovation, done in collaboration between Egypt's Antiquities Authority, included architectural and accurate restorations, as well as maintenance work to ward off dangers and protect the walls of the mosque from the effects of moisture and salts, according to Mustafa Waziri, the Secretary General of the Supreme Council of Antiquities. The historic mosque is Cairo's second largest. The building started in Hijri year of 380, which is 998 AD, by Al-Aziz Billah, the 5th Caliph of the Fatimid dynasty, while his son, Al-Hakim bi-Amrillah, resumed building on the Hijri year of 393 or 1003 AD for 10 years to finally open it in 403 Hijri. Egypt, home to ancient pyramids and Red Sea resorts, aims to boost tourism by up to 30% annually over the next 5 years, bringing in private firms to operate sites and inaugurating a huge museum around the end of 2023, according to the tourism minister. Tourism is a crucial source of foreign currency and jobs for Egypt's struggling economy. The sector earned $10.75 billion in the financial year ending June 2022, up from $4.86 billion the prior year when it was hurt by the COVID pandemic. But it captures a little under 1% of the global tourism market, according to Ahmad Isa, a former banker appointed as a tourism minister last summer. The budget for more than 2,000 archaeological sites and 41 million museums in the 2021 to 2022 financial year was a modest 3.2 billion Egyptian pounds. The immediate priorities include expanding flight capacity and improving the investment climate by streamlining regulations. They need to increase the number of hotel rooms to 500,000 by 2030 from a little over 200,000 last year, could draw $30 billion in private investments, and private companies were involved in pilot projects to manage 10 sites. These include the Giza Pyramids, the Egyptian Museum in central Cairo, the Grand Egyptian Museum that will soon house the country's most prestigious artifacts. A rebound in visitor numbers from European and other markets was compensating for losses from what used to be Egypt's top two markets, Russia and Ukraine. Isa added that he expects a surge in Chinese tourists this year. Longer term, Egypt would seek to develop the market for independent travelers alongside tour operator packages. And joining us over the phone is Dr. Ala Khalifa, a tourism expert. Good evening to you, sir.
Good evening.
The tourism sector is starting to see a significant uptick as opposed to other seasons and other years, especially during the winter season. Do you think that the renovation of several museums as well as archaeological sites has helped in this uptick?
Well, normally the museums are adding up more to this touristic products that we're supposed to be presenting to travelers. If we are going to acquire 30 million travelers within the next 7-8 years, we need to diversify the products that we have. We need to have more of archaeological sites, we need to have more of museums, we need to have different types of products to present to travelers to enhance their experience.
Yes, despite the vast history and archaeological sites available here in Egypt, in addition to the natural appeal to the country, tourism in Egypt is not as high as in some other countries. Specifically, the Minister of Tourism spoke about how Egypt so far is only capturing 1% of the world or global tourism. How can the tourism industry grow, and how can we increase the number of tourists coming in?
Well, there are a lot of measures that needed to be done, and I think that first of all, we need to connectivity. We need to increase connectivity between Egypt and many different destinations around the world, and this is by allowing an open sky policy and giving incentives to airlines to open up routes to Egyptian destinations. The second thing is to increase the accommodation capacity, the housing capacity. Currently, we have nearly 210,000 rooms all over the country, which is enough for nearly 15 to 17 million tourists. But it's not enough for 30 million tourists. This is why we need to double up the capacity so that we can reach 500,000 rooms by 2030. And to do so, there will be a lot of infrastructural changes and facelifting now for the infrastructure in order to cater for this high number that we are aiming to achieve.
Yes, right now I believe in the winter season, Luxor and Aswan are a destination, a holiday destination for many European countries. What is the attraction there, do you think, for these tourists, and how can these two cities, I suppose, increase the number of tourists coming in for this season?
Well, Luxor and Aswan is only for cultural tourism, but there are so many other destinations in Egypt that are also fit for winter tourism. One of the most prospering activities of tourism in Egypt is the winter tourism. That means that touristic season is coming down in winter.
Yes.
Especially we have, in my opinion, a 7-month winter visit destination. Egypt are, in my opinion, like the areas such as Luxor, Aswan. We have, for those who want to go for the warm winters, they should go and spend a few days in Aswan. For those who would like to also want to have a coastal lifestyle, also they need to go to Dahab during the winter. For those who, for example, want to disconnect from the rest of the world, they can go up to the north of the Sinai, to Nuweiba, and to Catherine. For those who would like to go for Alexandrian romantic atmosphere, they can go to Alexandria. So we have lots of oases, harsh oases in the desert, like such as Siwa Oasis. So Egypt has got a diversity of places that fits this type of tourism. So people, when they have a very harsh winter in Europe, they can escape to these destinations, they can escape to the oasis, they can escape to Luxor for cultural tourism and for historical tourism, they can escape to Aswan for a wonderful nature and also cultural tourism. They can go to the Sinai and the Red Sea. So with this diversity, I think we have the product, but we need to
sell
refine
it,
the
basically.
infrastructure and increase the capacity.
Yes.
And I think we are heading in our way to achieve increasing numbers of food travelers.
Yes. When do you, sir, expect that the Gem Museum would open? And do you think that once it is open, it will significantly increase, I suppose, the tourism industry?
Well, in my opinion, it will help, of course, grabbing the attention which is required at this stage. But I don't want people to have high hopes that only one museum will be able to attract millions of tourists. Otherwise, other museums around the world would have had the same thing. It's just museum is a helping factor in grabbing attention towards the country. What makes Egypt as a focal point of attention is events. So a museum is bringing very positive news that comes out of a destination, a massive grand museum like this, a big mega event that comes out of the destination also makes it a focal point. A discovery of tombs, events for celebrities that are happening across the country.
Yes.
So many things that could grab the attention. This would be one of the reasons that will bring such a direct attention to the country and will make tourists looking forward to see this mysterious country again.
Okay, Dr. Ala Khalifa, a tourism expert, thank you so much for joining us over the phone. We're going to take a break and move on to our last segment. Moving on to the world of sports, where Lionel Messi was named FIFA Player of the Year in 2022 on Monday, as Argentina scooped all major men's awards after winning a Vintage World Cup final last December. The 35-year-old forward scored 2 goals in the final against France, with the South Americans emerging triumphant on penalties following a 3-3 draw after extra time in Qatar. His compatriots Lionel Scaloni and Emiliano Martinez won the Coach of the Year and the Keeper of the Year awards respectively, and their supporters even got the Best Fans prize. England were also rewarded for the victorious Women's Euro 2022 campaign. Mary Earps was named Keeper of the Year, and England's Dutch manager Serena Wigman received the accolade for Best Coach for England players. Beth Mead, Lucy Bronze, Leah Williamson and Keira Walsh were named the year's world number 11. Spain's Alexia Putellas, who won the Ballon d'Or last year, was named Women's Player of the Year after inspiring Barcelona to a 3rd consecutive national title in 2022. And finally, 2nd seed Casper Ruud fought his way through the last 16 of the Mexican Open on Tuesday, beating Argentine qualifier Guido Adriozzi 6-4, 4-6, 7-6 in Acapulco. Playing for the first time since his 2nd round exit at the Australian Open last month, the Norwegian didn't exactly hit top gear, but did enough to advance at the ATP 500 hardcourt event. Ruud will face Taro Daniel next, following the Japanese qualifier 6-4, 6-4 win against American J.J. Wolf. 3rd seed Taylor Fritz came out on top in an All-American battle against John Isner, seeing off his big serving countryman 3-6, 6-3, 6-4 to move into the 2nd round. It was Fritz's first match as a top 5 player after he moved up the rankings this week. The 25-year-old will play Canada's Denis Shapovalov in the next round. 4th seed Holger Rune also got his tournament up and running, edging American Bet Shelton 6-7, 6-4, 6-2. Well, this brings us to the end of this edition of Nile TV Newsroom Live. Hope you enjoyed this episode and stay tuned for more here on Nile TV.